What's up, guys? That cabinet is done. We dry fitted it up to the wall and everything seems to line up pretty well. So now we're going to start on this cabinet, which will be 36 inches. It'll butt up basically at this seam here, and then it'll run into the doorway. Originally the measurement, as you can see, was 14 by 12.75. I've decided I'm going to do 12 and a half out. I'm going to go ahead and cut two pieces out of our 1/2 inch ply. One that's the 12.5 for the 36-inch piece, and another one that's 12.5 that we will cut off at the 14-inch heights. One of the things we're going to have to figure out, because the template piece there is for this piece of the wall, is how it continues on to this, which sticks out a little bit more. So I think if we have that 14-inch or 12.5-inch board, we'll be able to either notch it out or figure out another way to match this, scribe this out. And then we're going to have a backing piece as well, so that from outside the van, you know, there's a back to it. Cut out the bottom of the shelf, went and put it up. I kind of wish I would have made it a little bit longer. It's exactly at 36 inches. Kind of wish it was more about 38, 39, but it'll do. So the piece that I cut off at the end of it, I'm going to cut this at 14 to be able to have one of the uprights, and then the other board that I ended up cutting it at 14 inches, I am going to cut two 12.5-inch uprights. So they should all match. And then that piece, the excess I will have off that 14-inch board, I'm actually going to make the backer. Since we got all the pieces cut, I've come into the van and I'm just trying to figure out and visualize how this is going to work. We did cut that 14-inch piece to be the backer over here, so that when you're outside the door you can see, you know, a back on the cabinet. So my plan is to, on this spot and probably here on this spot, so I can take out some of this wool to do it, put in some of those plus nuts, one in each spot, and that will give something to anchor to. Because this is kind of off of our ceiling line, we'll only have one going into the ceiling up here. This will give a lot more rigidity by having those two pieces. And then over here, we still have the framing member on the bottom, so we'll have that backer to be able to stick into that framing member on the side. Well, guess what, guys? Thunderstorms were in the forecast for today, and a quick little thunderstorm came and went. I put everything in the van because obviously it was pouring rain for a split second. Came back outside, took everything out. I was planning to cut the backer, and then I was going to use part of that for another upright, just in case I screw up with the upright that, you know, is curved. So I was like, oh, perfect, I'll just cut this piece off and everything should be good. I come back into the van, put them together, and I'm like, why are the measurements not lining up? I cut it exactly the same. Well, go to find out. You can see those words right there. I cut the shelf bottom rather than the shelf backer. Always double check. Here we go. I cut the piece to the same 12.5-inch depth. And now, because I said I wanted a longer board after looking at it up there when it was just the 36 inches, I think I might cut this one a little bit bigger, maybe at 38 or 39. More space, more storage space is always a good thing, so wish me luck there's no more mistakes like that. I decided I'm going to cut for the face frame and maybe get that put together tonight. I figured that'll go a lot quicker than scribing out the rest of that piece, especially with the van getting dark as it's getting dark outside. And also with thunderstorms possibly on their way. So we got all these face frame pieces cut for. I made the outside pieces so that they go The middle rail goes into it for both sides. And then there's a middle one that goes in between the two bottom rails. 1.5 inches on both sides for the middle one, and then these connect down to the bottom. As for the pocket holes, I'm going to do 2 pocket hole on the bottom rails into the side, and then same with the middle rail, I'll do 2 going up and down into the bottom and top rails. Pretty straightforward. Guys, well, got that face frame done last night. So today I am trying to figure out the space for the backer. So basically I'm going to have it butting up to the ceiling. The shelf will basically sit across and butt up to it in the bottom. My plan is to just have the backer fit where the middle upright is. I think I'm going to go ahead and cut it just shy of 19 inches for where our center line is on the bottom of our shelf. So I made this center line exactly center of the board so that I could figure out where our face frame would be, and then also for our middle upright so that it's directly centered. And so since that will be somewhere within this column, that backer should be perfect just to butt up to that. The next plan of attack after I get that backer done is kind of to try and figure out the angle that will be here. Got that backer board cut for. Basically it looks like it should line up pretty much with this sideboard here, but there might be a little bit of play to the other side. Either way, looking at kind of the spacing, I'm planning to put a plus nut in this spot, one here, and then I think I'm going to put one here as well, so that we have 3 that are kind of helping hold up that shelving unit. So I pulled out the wool that we had shoved in this column here. One of the things, I just don't want to get all those metal shavings into the wool, because then they're just going to get stuck there. There's nothing we can really do about it. And then we'll go ahead and get some Rust-Oleum on them, and then see if we can get those cross nuts in today. If you haven't seen that, I showed how to put them in one of our framing videos, so I'll link that up in the top corner there. After sleeping on it and talking to Katie, I decided I am going to make a strip that goes into those plus nuts on the back. And I did realize yesterday that that plus nut here was outside of where the backer would be. I think the backer will end like an inch away from it. I mistakenly thought this hole was this hole. I put just a small, piece that I cut off one of the boards previously when I cut one that was a little bit too long, and then I just put 2 screws into it to kind of show what that backer was going to look like. I realize this is one of the most incoherent videos I've had. Maybe in post-production I will be able to figure it out and give you guys a bit of a better presentation, but I'm really flying by the seat of my pants trying to figure this out. So I think my plan for the uprights, I am just going to translate the curve that fits on at least the top of it onto the boards and get that cut out, because then that would match the ceiling just fine. And then from there I might put the shorter upright actually onto the bottom board, screw it in, and then maybe try to butt everything up to the ceiling and then get that line on that board, and then that way I could just translate it onto the other upright and it should be exactly the same. Yeah, I don't know if it's the best way to go, but it's what I feel like will probably work. Put these up here, butting it up as straight as I can, and pencil inside line. Go. Alright, to be able to cut this line off straight, I'm going to use the circular saw. My plan, because I know the blade is 1.5 inches away from this track, using it on the right side. I'm going to just measure over 1.5 inches in a few different places, line this up, and that should give me a pretty straight cut right down that line without moving at all. The next thing I was trying to do after cutting down all the pieces is to see if I can get the angle of the backer, one angle that matches this going down into the board, and then one angle matching the curve on the back, so that's nice and straight. All right, look at that. So I got that angle cut in there. It lines up on the bottom and on the top. So let's get everything sanded down and the pocket hole screwed in. I've been having issues with the 1-inch screws popping out of the 1/2 inch material. They are supposed to be the 1/2 inch material to 1/2 inch material screw, the 1-inch, using 5/8 on the drill bit and a 1/2 inch on the block. Well, I've found even getting closer to a 1/2 inch on the drill bit, I am poking screws through. So I did some practice ones and found if I raise this up just higher than the 5/8, one of the problems being there are holes that this thing won't catch, so I'm threatening screwing up the back of it and, like, you know, messing up those hole marks. But I've found if I raise it up to that mark, just basically right in between, you know, closer to 5/8, right in between the 1/2 and the 5/8 mark, and then put this kind of right in between as well, I haven't had issues with the screw heads poking out. Have it. First item on my list today is to cut some of this L molding. Down here below, I couldn't get the angle to fit perfectly over the edge of the bottom of the cabinet. I got that molding cut for, so this piece will fit under the cabinet here and will sit flush with the bottom, so it kind of has a little bit of an angle. I cut this piece to go down the side, but I don't like how I would have to figure out butting up that corner. So my plan is to get 1-inch molding basically to finish off that triangle here. For that, I would have to go to Home Depot or Lowe's. I'm not going to do that today. One of the final projects I want to be able to complete before we get the final sand down and paint these cabinets is putting in some plugs for these holes, because this will be a visible piece. The back one will also be visible. I'm debating if I'll do it on the inside. It's not as dire with them being inside of a cabinet. You don't really see it otherwise. But these plugs are something that Kreg sells, and they have a flat bit that goes in and fits where the screw is, and then this flat piece out front. There we go, finished putting the plugs in. Once the glue dries, I'll probably give it at least 24 hours. Then we'll be able to just saw underneath, cut it off flat, sand everything down, and those holes all should be plugged pretty nicely. Picked up that saw from a buddy. So this basically will tuck under the plugs that we put in and glued in place, and I'll just, it cuts on the back pull, and I'll just back pull it all the way up until it's nice and flush, and then we'll go ahead and take the sander and sand it all down. So I started going at the plugs, not realizing that I was actually slicing into the cabinet piece. For some reason, I watched a couple of videos of the Kreg company saying that using one of these saws, you won't cut the face. Well, I sliced into the face down here. There's a couple little scratch marks still. I tried to sand it down, but these are definitely sanding down super nice. A couple air places in behind them, but once that latex paint is over there, you won't even notice it whatsoever. It'll be a nice smooth finish. Sorry, last night I ended the video a little abruptly. I got a phone call from a buddy who said he would be willing to help me out a little bit, try to figure out how I was going to get the molding on. And so we ended up doing it a little bit different than I was expecting. On the bottom, we cut a piece of that 1.5 inch stuff just to fit perfectly on that bottom. So it basically goes down and then levels off on the bottom here. And then for the side, because that face frame had to be flush on the backside to meet up with the bigger cabinet, it kind of sticks out a little bit, about 1/4 inch on this side. So we ended up, because that framing was 1/4 inch, we just cut it down to match how big that 3/4 inch face frame is, and just did it all the way around. One of the other things that he really suggested that I do, he had some silicone paintable caulk. So we went ahead and caulked all the seams that had big openings and stuff, and that would be visible on the inside of the cabinet and all that stuff. So I'll sand down some of the rougher spots on it, but other than that, like, it'll paint up nicely.
So we are tackling the upper cabinets on the passenger side today, and Matt built both of these beautiful cabinets for us and got them all painted and everything like that. So we are going to install them today. This requires 2 people. So hello again. And basically what we're going to do is put it up there, figure out where we want to put the holes, and then drill some pilot holes, put it back up, and put it in. Look how good it looks!
We got a shelf! How exciting is that? So we did 3 screws into our wall framing, and there's 1 into the wood framing here, but then we also did a couple into the wood, and then another 1 into the wood framing and the ceiling here, and then another couple just into the wood, figuring these boards are pretty solid and they will hopefully, you know, not have any issue. Grabbing on it, it shakes the whole entire van. It doesn't move at all. We did use cabinet grade screws. So for the wall, these are 2 inches, and then the ones up top are 1.5 inch. So hopefully they have good bite. Yeah, which we had to, I just had to go buy the 2 inch ones. So yeah, that one is solid. And so now we're going to look at getting the next cabinet up. We got a little bit of figuring out to do to figure out where the backing board will be on these plus nuts. And then it's going to screw into the side here. But we should be golden. So for the new backing, I am making a 3/4 inch piece on a 1/2 inch piece of the plywood. And I'm just going to glue it on there, and I will clamp it down for a little while to let that glue set. And then we'll go ahead and paint it all white, just so we don't have to worry about it at all. And that will be what screwed into the plus nuts on the framing of the van. And then this is what the cabinet will be screwed into. For the right side of the cabinet, because originally I was going to have this backing go all the way down, I'm going to cut a piece and make a backing strip on the right side of the cabinet. Alright, look at that. I mounted it with 3 of the bolts. It's a little bit further over than I was originally planning. I kind of wanted it closer this way. I think this should work just fine. So that next cabinet will screw into this piece. There will be a backer to screw into the cabinet back. I think this should do the trick for getting it in place. We'll get Katie and get going on it. Yeah. Look at that. There's from outside. So it doesn't stick out too much, not too obtrusive into the path or into your view. Far enough back that if you're cutting at the counter, you're not hitting your head. Yeah, I am thrilled with how that's turned out. Thanks so much for watching this video. I know it was a longer one, so if you made it this far, thank you so much for your support. In the future, we will show how we installed some under cabinet lighting and the process of making cabinet doors, so stay tuned for that. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like, subscribe if you want to see more content from us, and leave us a comment below. We love hearing from you. Hope you have a wonderful week, and see you in the next one.